After I eviscerated him, did this guy seriously read a couple books, recruit 2 buddies to back him up, and take a swing at an entire movement? Albeit a nebulous and ill-defined movement, but a movement nonetheless. I mean, it's like he was beaten up, and then he got on a month-long workout regimen, found 2 friends, and came back to the playground for another round. Go home, Kraut. Fighting isn't your thing. Good Lord, you bloodied your own nose and split your lip by whiffing with these weak videos and falling flat on your face on the blacktop. Your new friends will abandon you as soon as they realize you're kicking a hornet's nest. How utterly pathetic.
First, a third of the African population speaks Afrikaans, which is like a Dutch-German mix of a language. Then a lot more people speak French. Then people speak English. Most Africans probably speak up to 2-3 languages.
Okay, I don't even know if I can do this anymore. That was the most asinine statement he's made so far. A third of Africa does not speak Afrikaans. And I would like to see his source for most Africans speaking 2 or 3 languages, as he likes to say.
Go to the Wikipedia articles, and you find that the first African kingdoms have their economy based on trade with metals, with gold, bronze, copper, and with salt.
Except no, you imbecile. There is no mention of copper or bronze anywhere in that article. Furthermore, there is no detailed examination of the first economies of countries or kingdoms in Africa. And moreover, the Wikipedia article is addressing the entire continent of Africa, which includes the Arabs to the north. The authors of the piece that you are butchering are specifically addressing black Africans. Could you be any more deceitful?
Well, even from an evolutionary perspective, genes, only function within an environment. I told you that before. It's, if you have...
Jesus, that is a stupefyingly absurd statement. Of course, genes function inside environments. Where else, if not inside environments? This guy right here is what smart looks like to stupid people.
Fancying himself as a highbrow sophisticate who cultivates profound knowledge and pontificates from his grisly futon. Assuredly, Kraut's rejoinder to my rebuttal would exhibit academic erudition of the highest order.
Anti-whiteism, anti-whiteism.
Or the antithesis of academic erudition of the highest order. By the way, does this picture strike you as projection? Thankfully, I don't have a shirtless picture of Kraut, but here is his image. And these are some stills from an impromptu video that I made while stretching and watching the regime's media blatantly lie about the attempted mass assassination of Republican legislators. Now, if the cartoon is Kraut's visual projection, what does the song tell us about his private affairs? So, Kraut, from falling flat on your face, I drag you to your feet, your lips quivering, the futility of your objective settling heavily upon you like a great, tenebrous, and inescapable realization. I will give you a piece of advice. Forget all this. Triple your production of unrelated content and move on. You have a large subscriber base who will happily put all this behind them as soon as you do.
Have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Here's a little visualization.
Funny you would mention the DK effect at the beginning of your rejoinder series that exemplifies the DK effect.
In summary, it states that the more a person spends talking about a topic that they know progressively less about, the more likely they are to make fools out of themselves.
Indeed, Kraut. Indeed.
Around 2 months ago, I announced on Twitter that I would be looking deeper into alt-right claims of race realism, that I was seeking out the opinions of professionals in an attempt to first and foremost educate myself, and I succeeded by managing to get the attention and valuable help of a neurologist and a geneticist. One of them also happens to be on YouTube. I am mentioning this because, funny enough, the alt-right reaction to that was to proclaim that asking biologists to explain biology is supposedly an appeal to authority fallacy.
Wrong. In logic, an appeal to authority is perfectly legitimate. However, Kraut, the authority must exist, it must be verified as an authority, and the authority must not be a stakeholder. In other words, he or she must be disinterested. I will grant you that these two people exist, but you did not provide any proof that they are authorities in the fields that you are referencing. Using superfluous scientific jargon and referring to them as the geneticist and the neurologist is not proof of authority. Moreover, both your biologist and your geneticist reveal bias, which means they have an emotional stake in the subject. Words like Schwachsinn give this away. Thus, yours is an appeal to authority fallacy.
One of the first things the geneticist told me was that she had spent a considerable time of her career doing research on genes that are resistant to genetically inherited diseases, and that in her words, Schwachsinn, which means nonsense, such as race realism.
Sorry, I'm stuck on the genes that are resistant to genetically inherited diseases. Something about that doesn't sound right. The genes are either causing a disease, and therefore it is a genetically inherited disease, or they are not causing the disease. I could see genes that are resistant to certain infectious diseases, perhaps, but not genes that are resistant to the diseases caused by genes. Either the genes cause the disease or they do not cause a disease. But I could be wrong.
I would like to thank the geneticist for actually even giving me one of her own books from her time as a student during the 1980s, so I could get a
1980s? Kraut, we're talking about almost 40 years ago. How many times did you sneeze on the dust coming out of this book?
Let us start with something simple, RK selection. It is one of the favorite topics of the alt-right and several far-right commentators. You will find many a video on the topic of RK selection from many, ranging from the conservative commentator Bill Whittle, a 3-hour series by
Good God, get on with it.
I believe the best way to illustrate what RK selection is with the translation of the German term for it, Fortpflanzungsstrategie, which means strategy of sexual reproduction, and with these graphs. Take a very good look at these graphs and their coordinate system. The x-axis represents percentage of maximum lifespan. The y-axis represents the number of surviving offspring. Within this graph, you will see 5 different strategies of reproduction, with there being 2 extremes, human beings and the thistle. Human beings are K-types, the thistle is an R-type. Human beings have few offspring, however, their reproductive strategy includes considerable time for nurturing that offspring, thereby ensuring that the majority of that offspring survives. Thistles have a lot.
Wait. What the hell are you talking about? The RK selection argument is an argument from analogy, and it is a successful argument from analogy because it shares structural similarities to the strict application of the RK theory in biology. This application is valid. Do you seriously believe that those who have been using the RK selection theory to understand the differing behaviors among the races of man have been using it literally?
Elephants lack reproductive and sex organs for plentiful offspring in a single pregnancy, however spend considerable time nurturing their offspring, hence K-type. Frogs have reproductive and sexual organs for plentiful offspring, however spend less time with nurturing that offspring.
Kraut, I have some oceanfront property in Wyoming that I'd like to sell to you.
Hence R-type. K-types require for their reproductive strategy to inherit organs and behavioral patterns that allow them to convert energy into that nurturing process. Wombs, pouches, milk production, possibly even socialization. A side effect is also that...
Okay, we get it. You don't understand that the RK selection theory is used as an argument from analogy. This isn't new, Kraut. It's done regularly.
K-types give birth to offspring that is not fully mature and hence requires nurturing. It is important to note that this sexual reproductive strategy didn't evolve as a mere behavior by itself, but evolved as a necessity due to the sexual reproductive organs. R-types require no such thing.
And no. The survival strategies that we have categorized as R and K do not develop, at least according to the theory of evolution, in response to our sexual organs. It's not like our sexual organs, according to these theories, are static and the rest of our systems are evolving around those organs. No, according to the theory of evolution, the entire system is changing. So that would mean the sexual organs as well as the strategies by which organisms sustain life.
Changing from R-type to K-type is impossible, since it would be the equivalent of just randomly turning from one animal species into another.
Good God, that is astute. You know what else is impossible? Convincing anyone with, say, an IQ over 80 that you are anything other than an anti-white prig.
Human beings are K-types, not because of some dreamt-up nonsensical notion that there is a K-type psychology, no, but because our bodies have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to do so. Our brains have, and most importantly, our sexual organs are developed for this purpose as well. A female human pregnancy on average lasts for 9 months. A female woman's sexual reproductive organs have not evolved to give birth to dozens, let alone hundreds or even thousands of offspring at the end of a single pregnancy.
They haven't? Are you telling me that women can't give birth to thousands of offspring? Thank you, Kraut. This is abject Siamichy. Kraut cannot defeat RK selection theory on the terms of its use. So he strawmanned it into a witless misunderstanding of biology, which he's schooling us on here. Thank you. Perhaps next he will tell us where babies come from.
And lest we forget, we can observe that all humans are K-types by the simple fact that if you abandon a newborn human infant and leave it completely to fend for itself alone, it will die.
Okay, I gotta skip ahead.
The human biological reproductive process doesn't allow us to simply dump our newborns and expect them to naturally survive on their own. It takes a human infant more than a year to learn to walk. It takes considerable time and effort of parental nurturing to raise a child into a state where it can take care of itself independently. More importantly, a human infant child needs mother's milk. There's a reason why you find lactating breasts amongst K-type species, because they are an inherent and important part of the K-type sexual reproduction.
This can't be this stupid.
Or thousands of offspring within a single pregnancy. Of the idea the alt-right and its associates are proposing here. Because this creature I described wouldn't even be human. Offspring is a significant step undertaken in the evolution. The K-type reproduction strategy is a distinctively mammalian strategy. Most ridiculous of all within all of this has to be millennial woes. Besides assigning a sexual reproductive strategy that has evolved over millions of years and which doesn't exist amongst the mammalian species and is more commonly found amongst reptiles and fish, willy-nilly to migrants, refugees and whatever other group of people just comes to his mind, the crown of stupidity must be that he thinks he is an aspiring K-type.
Nope. The crown of stupidity is tightly affixed to your head, Kraut. And the evidence is that you thought it clever to build and pompously torch this straw man. Clearly, Woes was speaking about RK theory in the context of its argument from analogy. Everyone can see that. Everyone. No one thinks he's talking about evolving from producing thousands of offspring to a handful. Good God.
And I know already that some dim-witted and desperate individuals will claim, hey, we are only using RK selection as a metaphor. To which I can only reply that this just makes you even less scientific, since you can't just merely grab terms with meanings attached to them and reassign a new meaning.
Right. The next time you get the embryo of an idea like this, Kraut, you should pick up your cell phone and call almost any scientist in almost any scientific discipline, say social sciences. Give a scientist in that field a call and tell them to stop using models from ecology to understand their field, because you just can't grab terms and reassign them a new meaning.